Loserthink is a style of thinking, and I'm going to describe it a little bit more, that gets you to the wrong place. So in other words, the outcome is the loser part, not the people doing it. So I'm always respectful to the people, but this way of thinking seems deeply defective. And here it is. The first thing it assumes is history repeats. In other words, the climate doomsayers keep being wrong, and therefore that tells us they're being wrong again. Is it good thinking to say that history repeats? We've got an unbroken chain of here we go again, here we go again, here we go again, here we go again. Therefore, they're still wrong this next time. Is that good thinking? It is not. The most you can make out of the fact that there's a 50-year unbroken chain of wrong predictions is that we absolutely could be wrong. Absolutely 100% practical and viable that their predictions we're seeing today are totally wrong. But that's all it does. If you take that from it's possible that we could be wrong 50 times in a row, but, it's certainly possible. If you take that to we are wrong, you have fallen for loserthink. Because history can't repeat. Not in a sense that patterns are somehow magically predictive. You probably saw some tweets going around in which some organization, I forget who, had compiled all of the wrong climate doom predictions for the last 50 years. And it's a very impressive list because it's an impressive list of wrong predictions over the years. Now, here's what Mark Levin says about all of those wrong predictions over the years. He says, it's been a subterfuge to undermine our constitutional system, to undermine our capitalist system, and to create almost Zen-like support for this radical agenda, which has as its purpose to destroy many of our freedom institutions in this country. Do you buy that? So we have this history of bad climate predictions of doom. And Mark Levin says that it has a sort of a unifying theme, that it's to undermine our capitalist system, create an almost Zen-like support for radical agenda, and its purpose is to destroy our freedoms and institutions in this country. How many of you believe that? To me, that seems batshit crazy. Like actually just batshit crazy. Here's what's wrong with it. To me, this is a standard, this is a very classic case of what I call loserthink. Now, to be clear, I'm not calling Mark Levin a loser. Loserthink is a style of thinking, and I'm going to describe it a little bit more, that gets you to the wrong place. So in other words, the outcome is the loser part, not the people doing it. So I'm always respectful to the people, but this way of thinking seems deeply defective. And here it is. The first thing it assumes is history repeats. In other words, the climate doomsayers keep being wrong, and therefore that tells us they're being wrong again. Is it good thinking to say that history repeats? We've got an unbroken chain of here we go again, here we go again, here we go again, here we go again. Therefore, they're still wrong this next time. Is that good thinking? It is not. The most you can make out of the fact that there's a 50-year unbroken chain of wrong predictions is that we absolutely could be wrong. Absolutely 100% practical and viable that their predictions we're seeing today are totally wrong. But that's all it does. If you take that from it's possible that we could be wrong 50 times in a row, but, it's certainly possible. If you take that to we are wrong, you have fallen for loserthink. Because history can't repeat. Not in a sense that patterns are somehow magically predictive. Here's why. For about 100,000 years, it was a fact that humans could not fly. They could not develop a machine that would let them fly. So for 100,000 years in a row, history repeated, didn't it? Every time somebody tried to jump off a hill and flap their arms, they died. Then they tried to put wings on their arms and they jump off a hill and it didn't work. 100,000 years of history repeating, and then the Wright brothers built an airplane and then it stopped repeating. So history doesn't repeat, but it is true that people can be wrong for a long time. That's certainly true. The reason that the Wright brothers could do what nobody could do for 100,000 years is they had new technology and they had the advantage of knowing what everybody else did wrong. So history gets smarter and smarter over time. So it's never the same as the last starting point. You're always at a new starting point. Yeah, there are always black swans and surprises, as somebody says in the comments. And today's technology can't be compared to anything in the past. All right? If you're looking at the history of climate predictions and you're saying that the accuracy that we have today after the modern era of satellites, if you're saying that the science before the era of satellites is going to be predictive of the era after satellites, you're on pretty shaky ground. Those satellites are pretty darn good at measuring temperatures and being able to cover a lot of space. So here's the thing. It is certainly fair game to say they've been wrong for 50 years. So there's something about humans that makes us panic about things that are really just coincidence or speculation or imaginary thinking. So that part's true. So Mark Levin would be accurate in saying, if he were to say this, he would be accurate in saying that humans don't change much. So we're pretty much the same humans we've been for 50 years. So our ability to be fooled by BS, our ability to be fooled by scare tactics is the same. So we should be looking out for it. So that much is true. We should definitely be looking out for it. But we cannot therefore say that old technology is comparable to the most modern science we have. That's just not productive thinking, because history doesn't repeat in that way. It is true that we get fooled easily. That part's true. But the science of it all is completely different. Next, Mark Levin says that all of this past doomsaying really had a secret agenda to it, sort of secret. Not secret enough that he couldn't see it, but it's to undermine the Constitution and capitalism and to destroy our freedoms. What evidence is there of that? Can anybody point me to the evidence that all of those 50 years of newspaper articles were written by people who had a secret agenda to destroy capitalism? I don't think so. Far more likely, it was a whole bunch of people acting independently for their own reasons, and almost none of them were thinking about capitalism, and probably almost none of them were thinking about anything about destroying freedom. So this is what I call the mind-reading illusion. The mind-reading illusion is that you can look at hundreds of different people acting independently for whatever reason, many of them being fooled or scared, many of them just being wrong about the science, some of them maybe just trying to get attention, some of them maybe trying to raise money, probably hundreds of different reasons and combinations of different reasons and different people at different times. And Mark Levin has summarized this as they want to destroy freedom and get rid of capitalism. That might be the worst take of all time. It might be the worst take of all time. And it's a common one. I mean, it's not like the one person has that take. It's one of the most common takes, and it's ridiculous. Whose mind are you reading who has these secret thoughts about destroying freedom and capitalism? That applies to exactly nobody. There's probably literally nobody who's ever had that opinion out of 7 billion people. But, I suppose you could find one person, just like you can find Beto O'Rourke wants to go to your house and take your gun away by force. You can always find somebody. So I wouldn't dispute that Mark Levin could find somebody who would say, oh yeah, we just want to destroy capitalism. That's our secret plan. But I don't think that's a good way to think of this whole situation.